Is Grand Theft Auto 6 on its way? Fortnite celebrates the 4th of July by shooting a gigantic missile directly towards Tilted Towers. Ubisoft plans on changing the future of gaming. And finally, prepare yourselves, please. Make sure that you're sitting down because we are about to get a live-action Gundam film.
Oh my God!
All of this and much, much more for this week's episode of The Nerf Report.
Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to The Nerf Report. My name is Bryant, Chappel. I am the host for this week's show, and if it's your first time here, thank you for watching. The show is extremely simple. Every single week, we take all the week's gaming, geek, and nerd news, nerf it down into one show once a week for you, the audience. And if you think that sounds awesome, go ahead and hit the like button. If you're new here and haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. And if you need more Nerf Report in your life, head on over to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, where you can get more gaming, geek, and nerd news throughout the week. And now that all of that is out of the way, let's get straight into this week's news. You know, I can't think of a better way to start off this week's show than talking about everyone's favorite drug smuggling, gun running, bank robbing video game. Of course, I'm talking about Splatoon 2. Yeah, you're shaking your head now, but those little squids, terrible little inklings. Well, this week, Grand Theft Auto fans were sent into a panic when this message appeared on PlayStation 4 and PC versions of Grand Theft Auto 5. Grand Theft Auto 6, coming 2019. Now, Grand Theft Auto 5 originally released in 2013 for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and is currently the highest grossing media title of all time. Grand Theft Auto's developer, Rockstar Games, is currently working on Red Dead Redemption 2, so the idea that Grand Theft Auto 6, the next update to this massive franchise, would be releasing a year after Red Dead Redemption 2 is a pretty hard sell, but that didn't stop the internet. In fact, the internet lost its collective mind. In fact, let's roll the clip. And before anyone says, that's a clip of the World Cup. Yeah, I'm American, and I don't get that reference. Now, Rockstar Games quickly responded to the Grand Theft Auto 6 announcement in a tweet, which they said, "This is a hoax made with the use of mods, and not an official message or statement from Rockstar Games." And I get where all this hype is coming from, because as a fan of GTA, I want a new game as much as anybody. But I also know that there is no way that this game is coming out any time before 2020. I mean, that's just a realistic expectation. I mean, Grand Theft Auto Online is making an insane amount of money for Rockstar Games, and it's consistently still receiving updates. In fact, the very existence and success of Grand Theft Auto Online has, in my eyes, delayed the necessity for a release of a new Grand Theft Auto. Now, that being said, we do know that Rockstar Games is currently working on Grand Theft Auto 6. In fact, back in March, the folks over at The Know posted this video talking about Project Americas and the potential return to Vice City. Not going to get into all the details they talk about in the video. I'm going to have you check that out yourself. But if you're interested, I went ahead and linked it up above in the iCard. Highly recommend checking that out because one thing is for certain. Grand Theft Auto 6 is for sure going to make a buttload of money. And speaking of games that make way too much money, Fortnite was in the news this week. Just like they are every week. So let's grab our pickaxes and get the battle bus ready as we dive headfirst into this week's Fortnite news. Fortnite, building walls in games and in relationships since 2017.
You play too much Fortnite!
Walls! Fortnite held another in-game event for its fans when it announced Blast Off. Get in match on Saturday by 10:30 a.m. Pacific time and look to the sky.
Oh my God!
No, not Santa, a rocket. A massive rocket that excited thousands of fort heads and North Korean dictators around the world. So when the time came and the rocket finally blasted off, it launched into the sky and lasers aimed it directly towards tilted towers, only to have a barrier block the missile, launching it into another dimension and ripping the sky forever, leaving another puzzle and mystery for Fortnite players to solve. I think I smell a trend happening here. And honestly, I can't hate on this event too much because I love when gamers come together for events like this because stories come out of them that are just incredibly funny. Like, for example, this time, Elemental Ray did something so legendary that it is going to go down in gaming history forever. You see, Fortnite players agreed to a ceasefire for the blast-off watch party, and a group of players built together a massive structure where they could watch the launch together. Only Elemental Ray didn't seem to get that memo, because he blew up the ramp, eliminating 48 other players and becoming the new record holder for the most kills in a solo game of Fortnite, thus immortalizing Elemental Ray as the greatest Fortnite player of all time and the patron saint of the Nerf Report. Congratulations, Elemental Ray, this is well deserved. And in other gaming news, Ubisoft is planning on changing the future of gaming forever, and honestly, I cannot wait. In an interview with Ubisoft.com, Lionel Reynaud talked about Ubisoft games shifting from one long narrative to shorter, self-contained narratives in a larger story arc. Reynaud said, "The idea was that you have this conflict, and the resolution, and then it's finished. You've killed the bad guy, for instance. We've built a strong nemesis, and the goal of the game is to kill him or free the country. We've done that a few times in our games, but when you succeed, you have to leave the game, because there's nothing else to do." So the goal was to break this, and say that you will be the hero of a region or population many times, not just once. And if you get rid of a dictator or an oppressor, something else is going to happen in the world, and you'll have a new goal. And on one hand, I'm like, great, more gameplay, more playability, I'm all for that. But then on the other hand, I'm kind of like, there's something to the idea of having a good beginning, a middle, and an end to a story, and then you're done with it. Like, for example, God of War. A great game. Finished the story, and there were side missions left to do if I wanted to, but as far as the story goes, it had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that was great. I could never pick that game up again and be perfectly fine. But I guess what I'm really interested in here is how this is going to affect future games coming down the pipe, like Division 2. Am I going to get this idea and this mentality that Ubisoft is talking about in the Division 2? And am I going to have the hours and hours of gameplay and multiple run-throughs that I can do? And if I take down a boss over here, is a new boss or a new faction going to pop up for me to fight? Because if so, I mean, that sounds great. But the fact is, that sounds great for one game. I don't want like 20 games like that to come out in a year because no one's got time for that.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Look out, Michael Bay, because there's a new mechanized robot franchise on the horizon. Who am I kidding? He's probably going to be involved in this one somehow as well. This week, Legendary Entertainment and Sunrise announced that we are getting a brand new live-action Gundam film. Gundam originally aired in 1979, and the anime series has been filling the giant robot fans' hearts since that day. The series was originally titled Mobile Suit Gundam, and since then has spawned manga, toys, films, novels, and video games. In 2014, the Gundam franchise reportedly brought in 80 billion yen a year, roughly 724 million US dollars. Of that 80 billion yen, 18.4 billion, or 162 million in US dollars, came from retail sales of toys or hobbies. Now, unfortunately, the announcement didn't come attached with actors or directors, but we did find out that legendary producer Cale Boiter is going to be overseeing the film. If that name sounds familiar, Cale Boiter worked as producer of movies like Pacific Rim Uprising. And finally for this week, let's talk about Overwatch 2. Never mind. That noise, of course, signifies that we are running out of time and coming close to the end of this week's show. So in order to cover the rest of this week's news, we must initiate Nerfed in 60 seconds. The rules of the game are are simple. Every single week we have so much news to talk about and so little time to do it. So we take all the week's remaining news, put 60 seconds on the clock, and try to cover it as fast as humanly possible without running out of breath, passing out, or dying. It's not really that impressive, but, you know, makes for a good segment. So, with that in mind, let's put 60 seconds on the clock and go. EA gave us a 20-minute extended look at Anthem this week, and if you haven't made your mind up on this game, highly recommend you check out that video. It finally gave me an idea of exactly what this game might be. Dead Island Survivor is now out on mobile, and speaking of mobile, Pokemon Quest finished its first week on the market. Probably wondering how much it made. $3 million in its first week. Doesn't really surprise me because Pokemon sells like crazy. Fortnite Playground is now available for all players, but you have until July 12th because then it's going back in for maintenance. Shenmue 1 and 2 will be releasing worldwide on August 21st. Conan Exiles has officially sold 1.4 million copies worldwide. The Darwin Project is now free to play on Xbox. Amazon may have leaked that we are about to get a Bloodborne 2 and a Sunset Overdrive 2. Australia has lifted its ban against the We Happy Few. And finally, Netflix gave us a brand new trailer for Season 2 of Castlevania. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it for Nerfed in 60 Seconds, and that is it for this week's episode of the show. If you liked what you saw, make sure to hit that like button. If you're new here and haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. More importantly, maybe while you're at it, just share it with a friend. As always, my name is Bryant Chappel. You are you, and this has been the Nerf Report. Thanks for watching.